Hey everyone, actually into today's video we're going to have a look at the summer of 1995 today. We're going to do a historic video for the summer of 1995, and later on you'll be seeing the second part, because this is in two parts, really. You'll be seeing the second part of today's historic videos, which will be looking at winter of 95-96, because I do see the summer of 95 and the winter of 95-96 as very much a duality, really, very much linked those two weather situations. So we'll be doing 95-96 a little bit later on. I'll be turning up this afternoon, but for now it's the summer of 1995. Really hot summer. Actually, in some cases, it was, in some examples I should say, it's a better summer than 1976, but it's something of a forgotten summer, really, and we'll explore the reasons for that in a moment. It wasn't as hot as 76, and I think that's the reason, generally, that 95 is a little bit forgotten, actually, because it really is an extraordinary summer, actually, in terms of dryness. Certainly it was a drier summer even than 1976. So I'll have a look at all the charts in a moment. Before I get on with the video, just mention me advertising those green keyword ads on all my pages at GazworthVids.com. If you roll your cursor over green keywords, they will display ads, but if you click through the word, you'll go to the advertised website. You'll be supporting GazworthVids.com by doing that. We're also using the historic archive today from wettercentral.d. You can see all of these charts for yourself at the fantastic historic archive at wettercentral.d by going to my links page and clicking on the link to Wetter Central. They've got an archive of charts going right way back to the 1st of January 1871. Fantastic for a bank holiday Monday. And also I mentioned Trevor Harley's personal weather website. I talk about it a lot in my historic videos. Much of the information you hear in this video will have come from Trevor Harley's website. So again, you can find the link to Trevor Harley's personal weather website on my links page. It's a wonderful resource of information. Has weather information going right way back to the Dark Ages and even beyond that in some instances. A fantastic resource of information. I can't rate it highly enough. Or the historic archive at wettercentral.d. Either, for that matter, two wonderful websites. Do check them out. And thanks very much to both websites, because these historic videos would not be possible without Trevor Harley and wettercentral.d. So this is how we're going to start the summer of 1995. We're going to start on the 1st of May 1995. Very interesting situation here in May 1995, because we get a little bit of a teaser for what's to come later on in the summer. This happens very often in the best summers. Very often you do find that you get a little bit of a teaser sometime around May, early June, just giving you a bit of a heads up of where the atmosphere is going, that things are not quite in a normal situation. Does happen a lot in the best summers, and this one is no exception. So we get a heat wave at the start of May 1995. This is how we start May 95, with high pressure building to the south and the southeast. That's bringing up very warm air off the continent. As we go through to the 3rd of May 1995, we're seeing temperatures already widely up 25, 26, 27, I believe 28 degrees was the peak of the heat in this period. That's 83 Fahrenheit. Very, very, very hot for the start of May. So there we are into the 5th of May 1995, and yeah, the high pressure is really dominating the scenario, and it's very dry, very sunny, very warm, very poor air quality of this. I remember this, having a lot of headaches with the poor air quality, but it was a very unusual sort of hot spell for so early on in the year. And then as we got through to the 12th to the 8th of January, 7th into the 8th, we get quite an unusual drop in temperature. Because the temperatures have been so high so early, the potential there for a big drop in temperatures. That's exactly what we got, as this area of low pressure splits the high pressure apart and moves down from the 7th into the 8th. Now the 8th of May 1995, you may remember, it was VE Day. We didn't have a May Day bank holiday that year in 95. Instead we had a VE Day bank holiday Monday, and we saw something like a 12 Celsius temperature drop coming along on the 8th, from the 7th into the 8th, with this low pressure running down the North Sea and a cold front moving southwards. So the day was actually kind of cloudy, dull, disappointing sort of day, to be honest. It wasn't much to write home about, and that heat wave that we had earlier on certainly was a distant memory by this point, but at least it was mainly dry in many parts of the country. But it was certainly a big drop in temperature as we go through into the 9th of May. Well, we're looking at the low pressure to the east and the high pressure out west. We're in a completely different regime now. Instead of the air coming up from the south and southeast, we're pulling the air down from the north or the northeast, so it's much, much cooler, and that's how we go into the middle of the month in a cool scenario. We're starting to bring low pressure in off the Atlantic here with this. So as we go through to the 17th, we bring a lot of rain in across the country, in many places getting over 25 millimetres on the 17th of May 95. And in the north, it's cold as well. We've got cold air digging in on the northern side of this low pressure, and we actually get snow, would you believe, across northern England and parts of Scotland. Durham has the maximum temperature just 5 Celsius on the 17th of May 95. So certainly no sign of the hot summer there. It really was a very cold, wet, miserable day, that. But things did improve again as we go through to the 20th. We begin to see the high pressure ridging back in from the south and the southwest. And we had to get another little brief mini heat wave as we go through to the 23rd. We see temperatures getting back up towards the 80s Fahrenheit again. But this one didn't last as long as the heat wave early on in the month. This only lasted a day or two. And then we bring the low pressure back in off the Atlantic. Overall, it's quite a changeable month, actually, May 95. Not particularly inspiring at all. I think the central England temperature was somewhere in the 11 Celsius category, so nothing much to write home about, to be honest. Very much near normal. So we end May 95 with low pressure to the east, high pressure ridging to the north and the northwest. Certainly no sign there of anything particularly hot or summery coming up. But as we move through to June, this is when things start to happen, but it's not immediately apparent. So we start June 95, we start the summer of 1995 with high pressure sitting to the north and out to the west. The low pressure is over to the east of the country, bringing down a generally cool air mass here. And this is the reason, I think, as we run through these charts, you will see the reason that I think 95 is generally a little bit of a forgotten summer, because this first half of June is actually really very disappointing. The high pressure is always out to the west. Here it is on the 10th of June 95. It's always to the west. We're always bringing down this north or northeasterly flow. Very cool temperatures mixed in with this. A lot of cloud as well. Temperatures barely getting into double figures where I am in Northamptonshire on the 11th, 12th, 13th. We just get temperatures of 12, 13 degrees. Very, very poor temperatures for the middle of June. And as I say, I think that's why this is a little bit of the forgotten summer. The Central England temperature for June 95 was 14.3. That's not too bad. It's maybe round normal. It's perhaps very slightly above normal for the time, but certainly nothing exciting, and it only gets to that because what happens in the last week or so. But this first half of June 95, very disappointing, very cool, and as I say, I think that's the reason 95 is a little bit forgotten, because it doesn't measure up to, say, 76 in terms of those temperatures. As we go through to the 15th, no real change. It's the same idea. The high pressures to the west, but low pressure to the east. We're still bringing down this very cool, cloudy, northerly flow, but things are going to start changing now. And as we move through to the 17th, it's actually this area of low pressure, would you believe, that brings about, or starts to bring about, that change, because this is moving in off the Atlantic, and it's beginning to bring a warm front in across the country. And it's within that warm front that we're going to finally start to see the Azores high beginning to show its hand. So we're losing the northern blocking and the Atlantic blocking that's given us all of those cool northern winds, and instead we're picking up more of a typical westerly flow, and we begin to bring tropical, warm tropical air within that westerly flow. Now as we move through to the 19th, this is when it starts happening. This is when the summer begins to show its hand. This low pressure out of the Atlantic depression is stalling. I say we've got warm air within this section here. We're bringing a warm front up across the country. Notice the Azores high starting to build over France. That's always an indicator for what's about to happen. And as we go through to the 20th and then on into the 21st, yeah, the high pressures increasingly building, the low pressure being pushed further and further north and west out into the Atlantic. It's being shunted off up towards Iceland. That's where you want it to go if you want a good summer. The high pressure is building all the time to the south, and as we get through to the 22nd, wham, there we go, we've got a 1030 millibar area of high pressure sitting right over the top of the country, and now this is beginning to generate much hotter air as well with this area of high pressure. So there we go into the 23rd of June 95, and yep, we've got high pressure at 1030 millibars really dominating the weather here. Temperatures lifting up, we're going up into the mid-20s, into the upper 20s, many parts of the country, so we're getting into the 80s Fahrenheit with glorious unbroken sunshine. As we go through to the 25th, on into the 28th, that high pressure going nowhere fast. Temperatures now are lifting up to 30, 31 degrees in places, into the upper 80s Fahrenheit. Glorious sunshine, as I say, and almost universally dry. We get a hot end to June 1995, and this area of high pressure building in from the Azores is now going to be an omnipresent feature through the rest of the summer, very much dominating the conditions. Now, it isn't hot all the way through. As we go through to the 30th of June 1995, get an interesting situation in that we bring down a cold front across the country, and that is symbolised here by these changes in the colour. We're going from the orange in towards the yellow colours to the north of Scotland. That is indicating cold fronts moving southwards, and we get a big drop in temperature with this. We're up to 33 degrees, 92 Fahrenheit across some parts of southern England in the afternoon of the 30th of June 95. Further north, we've got this cold front coming southwards. Very unusual in that there's virtually no rain on it. I remember this happening. There wasn't really much cloud on it either. It's just a push of air, really, a push of cool air coming down. Very odd situation. I remember it was around 8 o'clock in the evening when it arrived here in Northamptonshire. I say virtually no cloud, definitely no rain, and all that happened is that this very large gust of northerly winds picked up and started blowing through the house. The house was steaming hot. It had been a very hot day, and then suddenly this gust of wind blows through, starts slamming all the doors, and temperatures just suddenly drop, and there's something like a 20 Celsius temperature drop with this. We go from around 33 degrees in southern England down to just into the mid-teens across some parts of northern England behind that cold front. Very odd situation. I can't remember, actually, ever since that, a cold front coming through quite like that, in that the drop in temperature is so dramatic, but the actual weather is very benign. There's no thunderstorms, there's very little cloud, just a huge push of much cooler air blowing through the house. Very unusual situation with that cold front. So as we go through to July 95, and this is a really hot month, we have central temperature of 18.6. It's a proper classic hot July. We start off on a relatively cool note, actually, because we're bringing through that cooler air from the north, and we've got the high pressure more out towards the north and the northwest. It's not going to stay there, but as we move through to the 4th of July 95, well, yeah, we are in that northwesterly flow, so it is quite a bit cooler. Temperatures are back down in towards the low to mid-20s at best. But as I say, this isn't going to last as we move through to the 7th, and then on into the 8th. Yep, the high pressure coming back again. Any sign that the jet stream will begin to dig back southwards is gone. It's being pushed back up to the north again, with this area of high pressure becoming dominant. This introduces more hot air. We get more hot air pushing up from the south as we go through to the 10th of July 95. Temperatures are back up into the upper 20s, around the 30 Celsius mark again. So once more we're back into the mid to upper 80s Fahrenheit. This area of low pressure tried to bring a breakdown as we go through to the 11th. It's trying to bring thunderstorms up across the country from the 10th to the 11th, and I remember we didn't really get many storms here where I am in Northamptonshire. Some places got some big thunderstorms with this, but they were pretty isolated, to be honest. It wasn't a definite sort of thundery breakdown, but this is one of the more thundery spells of the summer of 95. Wasn't a classically thundery summer by any means, and that's the reason it's so dry. 76 actually had quite a lot of thunder thunderstorms, especially at the end of August when it all ended up in 76 with a huge thundery breakdown. That wasn't the case in 95, and you actually see how the summer ends in a few minutes. But this was one of the more thundery scenarios that we have around the 10th, 11th of July 95. And very briefly, we do start to bring low pressure in across the country to go through to the 15th. So there's more sort of very generalised, very localised thunderstorms, not on a wide scale, but some places got some big rainfalls around the middle period of July 95. And temperatures did edge down a little bit. Once again, we're going back in towards below to mid-20s as opposed to the upper 20s and the low 30s. But was it going to last? No, it wasn't, because here we go again. The Azores highs coming back in from the continent, ridging in through France, bringing the heat back northwards again as we go through to the 24th. It's the same sort of cycle, the high pressure building in, bringing hot air back up. We're lifting the temperatures up into the 90s Fahrenheit now. We're starting to reach the peak of the heat for the summer of 95. In this period, we're getting up towards 32, 33 degrees, quite widely back into the 90s Fahrenheit once again. Now again, we do attempt a thundery breakdown around the 26th and on into the 27th with these areas of low pressure coming in. Again, this thundery breakdown was not generalised, it was localised. Some places got big downpours, many places stayed dry. And for instance, where I am in Northamptonshire, I get just 6mm of rain in July 1995, and that comes after just 9mm of rain in June. So you can see how dry it is becoming, and where those thunderstorms are not occurring, and that's most parts of the country, it's just getting drier and drier and drier. The ground's cracking, the grass is going orange. I'm sure you remember it, the brown dead sort of grass that was common across many parts of the country through this very, very dry summer. As we end July 95, we end it with the high pressure very much dominating the weather, taking over pack. It's all gone very slack though here. So what's happening now is that we're getting very isolated thunderstorms within this very slack sort of flow, but it's really hot as we end July and start August 1995. And in fact, August 1995, the 1st of August, is the peak of the heat, both for August and for the summer. The actual highest temperature of the summer is 35.2 degrees set in Cambridgeshire. So that's getting on for around 95 Fahrenheit. Really, really hot temperatures. Again, it's all very slack, so there's a few isolated thunderstorms. Where they're occurring, they're big storms producing huge amounts of rainfall. Cardiff on the 2nd of August 1995 gets something like, I believe Cardiff got something like 80mm of rain in a thunderstorm on the 2nd of August. So that's quite sort of phenomenal how much rain occurred. But again, they're very, very isolated storms. Most places are missing those storms and staying dry with glorious sunshine, clear blue skies. Just where those storms are popping up, they're slow moving, they're torrential. And yet Cardiff, for instance, did get huge rainfalls on the 2nd, but they're by no means common across most parts of the country. It is very dry. This is the chart for the 2nd of August 95. Temperatures again into the low to mid 30s quite widely across many parts of the country. And we go through to the 3rd of August, no change, but high pressure is dominant as it is on the 5th. And moving through to the 10th, again, no sign of anything changing really. The high pressure is totally in control, and throughout this period we're seeing temperatures widely up into the 30s Celsius. I believe there's something like 10 days through this early and middle part of August where temperatures are getting into the 30 Celsius mark. A very incredible heat wave and very, very dry conditions. I record just 5mm of rain in August 1995, so that follows on just from the little bits that we saw in June and July as well, and less than an inch of rain over 3 months, and they're very hot months as well. That's the reason for the drought. That's why the grass died. That's why many reservoirs started to empty out. As I say, this is a drier summer than 1976, and what's interesting is that the devastation caused by it was nowhere near the devastation we had in 76. Although it was bad in some places, particularly Yorkshire were hit very bad by the drought, many places got away with it, and the reason for that is that even though it was drier the infrastructure in terms of the pipes, the pipe networks, and the reservoirs holding the water was much better. So that's the reason that we don't get as much devastation in 95 as we got in 96 in 76, despite the fact that it's a drier summer than 76. So moving through to the 14th, no change. Maybe temperatures edging down a little bit because we're bringing in a slightly more Atlantic flow, but it's still very warm or hot with temperatures into the mid to upper 20s Celsius. And moving through to the 17th, no change. High pressure goes on, the heat wave goes on, the drought goes on. Temperatures again are into the upper 20s or the low 30s in many places. And that's how we move through to the 20th of August. Again, no change. High pressure locked in fast across the British Isles, but now we are beginning to come to the end of this summer. We're coming to the end of the heat wave, and as I said, it ends on a whimper. It doesn't end on a bang, it goes out on a whimper, and all that happens is that the high pressure begins to slip further and further south. We're starting to get a more active sort of Atlantic, and as we go through to the 23rd, the high pressure begins to ease a little bit. We bring a very weak cold front down across the country. Doesn't really produce any rain, but it does bring a band of cloud, and it lowers the temperatures, and we just see a slow decline in the temperatures. This is very similar to 2003, August 2003, actually, in that we see a very slow, sort of gradual decline in the temperatures over the 23rd, 24th, 26th. They edge down by a degree or two every day. So by the time you get through to the 27th of August and on into the 28th, it's actually quite cool. We've got temperatures below average. The high pressures move out to the west of the country, and we're bringing down this northerly wind, and that's how we end August, with the high pressure ridging in. But now we've got a completely different air mass across the country. It's much cooler and fresher underneath that area of high pressure, and temperatures are just into the low 20s at best. Still very pleasant, of course, but it's very different air mass to what we have for most of the rest of the summer. So the central temperature for August 1995 comes out at 19.2. It is the hottest August on record, and up to that point it was the hottest month on record. It's been beaten since, but up to that point, 1995, August 95 was the hottest month on record, and it was the hottest August on record as well. I say the summer itself was drier than 1976. It was the driest summer on record, but it wasn't as hot as 76. It did come under 76 a little bit in terms of heat, and the reason, again, it's those temperatures in the first half of June. Now, as we move through to September 1995, the high pressure is still trying to cling on, but what's going to happen is what occurs very often in hot summers and very dry summers. We're going to see a breakdown. So as we move through the first week of September, the high pressure is going to pull apart, it's going to pull out into the Atlantic, and go up to Scandinavia. And look what's starting to happen. Low pressure is forming around the British Isles, sitting in the North Sea. Bring heavy rain, torrential rain occurred across eastern and northeastern parts of the country through this period. Really wet across Aberdeen, but the main thing about this is that the high pressure is moving in its position. It's moving up towards Iceland and Greenland. The low pressure is developing around the country, and as we go through to the 5th and then on into the 6th, look at this area of low pressure developing down to the southwest of the country. We're going into a proper wet and windy pattern, and yet by the 7th we've got heavy rain sweeping up across the country. Totally different, complete switch in the pattern. Something that does occur quite often in September's up that follow a hot and dry summer, a drought summer. You do very often find that you get a September that becomes really unsettled. It happened in 76, happens again in 1995. And as we move through to the 10th and then on into the 13th, it's very much a case of low pressure dominating here, keeping it really unsettled. Moving through the rest of the month, and as we go through to the 27th, if anything, we start to bring down very cool sort of autumnal type air from the north and northwest. Around that area of low pressure, it's starting to feel proper autumn. September 95 has a central temperature of just 13.7. It's around average, but it was a wetter than average month, and as I say, big relief after the June, July and August of 95. Big relief, although not as much as a relief as the wet September of 76, and again the reason is that we weren't having the kind of devastation that we had in 76 because the infrastructure was that much better. Was that the end of the heat though? No, it wasn't, because if we go to October, I'm just going to give you a quick look at October, see if you remember this. We had a real heat wave. We started off unsettled at the start of October 95 with low pressure in control. But look what's going to happen. We're going to go back to the pattern of the summer with the Azores high ridging into the continent, the low pressure stalling out in the Atlantic as we go through to the 7th and on into the 8th. There it comes. There comes the heat moving up from the south. We're seeing temperatures again getting up to 25 degrees quite widely, 77 Fahrenheit through this early part of October, the 8th and the 9th. Really warm, sunny days. I remember it was quite remarkable. The clear blue skies in October. Everything has big shadows in October when you get these sort of hot, steamy days in October. Very odd sort of conditions, and you get those big sort of shadows occurring underneath the sunshine. And it's actually a really warm month, October 1995. We were centering temperature of 12.9. Up to that point, it was the second warmest on record, just with 69, October 69 beating it. And it heralded the end of a really hot period, because from, I think I'm right in saying that from the 1st of November 1994 to the 1st of November 1995, we get our hottest 12 months on record, hottest 12 monthly period on record. I think we've beaten that since. I think we beat it around 2006, 2007, but it was a really hot period, and you would suspect that there'd be no more cold weather coming anytime soon. But if anybody thought that, and I did, I was one of those that thought it wasn't ever going to get cold ever again after that long run of hot months, boy were we mistaken, because we got the winter of 95, 96 coming up next. You're going to be able to see that in a few hours here at GavsWeatherVids.com. So that's the look at the summer of 1995, a really classic summer, a really hot summer. It's probably the best summer that I've lived through, because I was too young for 76. I wasn't born actually until 77, so I just missed out on 76. So for me, for my generation, 1995 is probably the best summer of our lives, and I'm sure you remember it very well. I hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, we've got 95, 96 coming up in a few hours, so come back for that. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.